Hey, hello everyone here so far, and welcome, Jordy, to our session today. I just want to mention a few things before we get started. If you can please keep your microphones off, on mute. Video either way, just please be respectful. You can put questions in the chat as we go, and we'll try to answer them throughout. And there will also be a Q&A session at the end. Also, this session is being recorded, so if you miss anything, you can go back and watch the recording later on after the conference. And that goes for all of the sessions through the conference too. There's also closed captioning available. If you would like, you can turn on captions in Zoom. And I will introduce our host now. Lily Jordy is the head of sound design for Arturia. Lily is an adaptive and resourceful sound designer turned team leader with over 15 years of experience in electronic music, complemented by a rich multicultural background. Classically trained as a multi-instrumentalist, she later specialized in sound synthesis, music production, and audio engineering, developing a versatile and detail-oriented approach to sound. Since joining Arturia as an intern in 2017, Lily has advanced into a leadership role through creative initiative, high standards, and a commitment to clear collaborative communication. As head of sound design, she leads a global team of internal and external collaborators managing roadmaps and workflows from creative direction to quality control and final delivery. Her focus is on securing industry-leading presets and audio assets that reflect both artistic excellence and technical innovation. In parallel with her professional role, Lily releases music under the name Lily J, a project born in 2010 in Montreal, and is currently signed to Barcelona-based label Sea Blue Audio. She performs live regularly at electronic music festivals in France, such as Hydra Trance, Ethereal Decibel, and Ice's Garden. Her passion as a music artist continuously fuels her sound design leadership role and motivates her to explore new horizons. Welcome, Lily.
Hi, thanks so much for the introduction. So hi, everyone. So I wanted to thank SoundGirls, first of all, for this slot in this conference. And yeah, we'll get started. So today we have 1 hour where I'm going to be talking about how to break into music tech as a preset designer. So the art and career potential of preset design. And I called it preset design to really differentiate this from sound design because it's such a vast career field where a lot of the sound design opportunities you'll find, for example, on LinkedIn or different spheres are like for film, for video games. But here I'm really talking about the focus on preset designing for instruments and effects. So whether you're simply curious, if you're also like an aspiring sound designer, or you're already like an audio professional, but you just want to learn more about preset design, this session has creative and technical notions, and I'll also give some career tips on like what are some good practices to become a pro preset designer. So we'll cover different types of preset design that you'll come across in this career. Also, like the mindset and workflow of a pro preset designer. I have some also supporting documents I can share during and after the session. How to showcase an instrument and strategies to pitch your work as well to become a pro. So one really like big key takeaway that I want you to be excited about after this session is that when you're designing sounds for instruments that are being sold, that are being bought and used by musicians and by people making music around the world, it means that you're really like your ideas are directly having an impact and they're being woven into modern day music. And for me, this was like the main thing that inspired me to follow this career. So a quick about me, even though Chelsea did a little intro, but I just wanted to give a background. So I have pretty classical music background with piano, cello. I played also in bands, and I went to Berkeley summer program because I always was very sensitive to sound and to music, and I knew that I wanted to work in this field. I just didn't know in which avenue I would be able to choose. And then it was only when I moved to Montreal for studies that I discovered the minimal techno club scene, and a lot of my friends were DJing and producing, and so that's when I started to produce on Ableton Live. It was Ableton 8 at the time, and started to mix. And before that, I'd already like made songs, even on partitions. Yeah, I had written classical partitions, or I had made songs in GarageBand, like with my voice and guitar, without any idea how to quantize a single thing. But then I started to play around with Ableton. And at the time, also, I didn't really know what a VST, virtual studio technology or plugin was. I just had a Zoom H4n, and I was recording samples. So I was just recording anything, my voice, my cello, like coin sounds on my desk to make percussion, and that's how I started to make techno. And then I finally, with time, I discovered what plugins were. So after Canada, I really wanted to stay in Canada, but I moved back to France to study sound engineering because I knew that this was going to be the best way to get into any kind of electronic music career. And it was just, it's cheaper and more accessible, and I'm half French. So I moved back to France for that. And I did a 3-year degree to become a sound engineer. And so there were multiple internships that we had to do many internships during this degree. And the internships that were provided by the school were sound tech, usually like, stagehand in concert venues, and also like assistant sound engineer. But, it's not to talk down about these career paths because they have their merit and they're great. It's just, it wasn't for me. I wanted something where I was in my own bubble, my own like creative little space where I could explore sound in peace and not plug and unplug stuff all day. And like I knew I wanted to find something like this, but I just didn't know what existed. But I started to look on my own for something different. And so I found an internship at Arturia in 2017. I was looking late at night in my last year of studies, and I saw that there was an opening for a sound design internship at Arturia. And I didn't really know what sound design was, but it really spoke to me. So I went there, I moved there. I was living between Paris and Arturia, which is in the French Alps. That's where I live currently. And the internship turned into a 7-month internship. I made my first presets. I made my first audio demos and sound banks. And here you have some visuals of my first sound banks that I made as an intern. Then I freelanced for 2 years because I wanted to see if like this was really something I wanted to pursue seriously. But I worked mostly with Arturia. I also made music for presets for iPad, for iOS synths, and sound slates. And then I was hired in 2020, right after COVID. They were looking for a lead sound designer in the team. It was a very small team at the time, so I took the job. And I remember, so I briefly mentioned this a few minutes ago, but it was during my internship that's when I knew I wanted to follow this like as my passion. Is that there was this musician who used my sounds from this signature bank here that I made, a free bank that's still up on the Arturia website. And he reached out to say that he had used the sounds in his album. And that's when I had that like epiphany of realizing that, whatever sounds we put out there, they have a direct impact. They're inspiring people directly to use into their music. And then it's going out there. It's going out on the radio. It's going out in albums, on vinyl. And that we have that impact and that stays, out there over time. So that was a really big catalyst for me to follow this career. And so finally today, As Chelsea was saying, so I lead a team. So now we're 6 in-house sound designers, and we work with like over 200 externals. So most of the sound designers we work with are freelancers, or they have their own company, and they're outside the company, and we do a lot of project management communications to deliver presets for our products. Other aspects of my work I just included here, like mentorship for interns, demos, reporting and analyzing data to make good decisions for new sound banks, and other stuff that's involved in this role, in this more of a management position. So and today, like the artist project I've had for the last 15 years, what's cool is when you're designing presets, you're directly like enhancing or mutual. It's like kind of a symbiotic relationship with your personal music projects, because it gives you like heightened awareness of like what a good sound is, and then you can use the sounds that you make in your music. So it's very beneficial in both directions. And in my music, I really focus on sounds that are expressive, I like to also explore like the hot and cold, like the contrast between acoustic sounds and very synthetic sounds, kind of like stuff that you'd hear with, an Aphex Twin, his music, and inspiring people emotionally to start a track with just one sound. So what is a preset? So a very functional explanation is that it's just a saved state, and it doesn't even have to be in a music instrument. It can be in your air conditioner. It's just a saved state on a device. And we are basically, when you're designing presets for an instrument or for an effect or for any functional purpose, you are trying to find the ideal parameters for the purpose of that preset. And a question that we were asked often is like, what is a good preset? What's the difference between something that's okay and something that's remarkable? And it's something that my manager asks us sometimes to explore. And the thing is that there's not really any straight answer for this, because it depends on so many different factors, like the target audience, the target genre. For instance, very, very simple plucked keys are going to be great for a pop sound bank. But if you put it in an expressive, cinematic, high-end sound bank, it's going to sound like an unfinished sound. So it's going to be very low quality. So it really depends on the target audience and genre, the intended purpose, and also the instrument itself, because you're going to have to navigate and deal with the architecture and the limitations of that instrument. So I thought that we could just go through the different types of synthesis that you'll encounter when you're designing presets. The first one that I listed is like the most classic. It's often referred to as old school synthesis. It's where you're imitating or emulating sounds to behave like something in the real world. So it could be a piano, violin, flute. So here I have Analog Lab open. It's our like main hub for instruments in Arturia. And I'm just going to play through some sounds. So here we have the emulation of the Jupiter 8 synth, so the Jup 8V. These are, synthetic strings using sawtooth waves. It's a bit of detune. This is like a classic way to make strings with a synthesizer. Here's a flute using the modular V. So like usually with a sine wave or triangle wave and some noise to emulate the blowing sound. Here we have the DX7, the FM synth, FM synthesis, frequency modulation is used a lot for, is really ideal for making crisp, crystalline sounds. And here there's like a bell sound. And here we have some natural sound effects. So just using noise, usually noise and filtering and reverb or just envelopes to emulate the sound of waves, of wind, natural phenomena like this. And you can maybe see on my screen, I'm turning this macro here. So all of these are mapped, and it's a really like key part of the preset that it's not just what we call the bass sound, as in BASE. The bass sound is what you load when you load the preset. That's what you hear the first time when you play without touching anything. But that's only half of the work. Like the other half is about how you give expression and depth to the sound with the controls of your instrument or your effect. So these, like this, we have brightness, timbre, so this changes the color, time and movement. And then it depends on the synth. Sometimes synths they're gonna have like 12 macros. Sometimes there's no macros. It just depends on what you're using. But it's a huge part of the work. And we call this physical modeling. So physical modeling is when you're replicating the behavior of something in the real world, like I just showed you. And it's really great to start with this kind of synthesis when you're a beginner and you want to perfect your skills, because you want to already know like that you are able to replicate these sounds before you start to make otherworldly experimental stuff. And you'll always find these simple sounds like strings, bells, pianos, EPs. You'll always find these sounds in the factory banks of classic synthesizers and their emulations. We also have like electronic replication of just classic or iconic patches like that are popular in pop culture, or like for example, sounds from famous movie soundtracks. We have a lot of these sounds in our synth called it's our stage keyboard synth called Astrolab, and we have this one, the 37, that just came out. And it's a stage keyboard, so we wanted to include a lot of tribute sounds. That's what we call them. So these are really popular with cover bands, for instance, or classic musicians, people who want to sound like a certain style, like David Bowie, or and it's also a pretty good way to showcase the quality of a synth, because people know these sounds, like they're like referential sounds. So it's also a good way to anchor and like showcase the quality of the instrument. Then we have the more playability focused, so simple sounds. These are like, we call them bread and butter. That's the jargon we use, because these sounds, they need to be in all the big banks. They're essential because they're versatile. So these are not like highly characteristic, like sounds of, they're not going to be in super niche sounds. It's the very, very opposite of that. So something like this. Like I can put this in a house track and a pop song. I mean, it's very, very simple, but can be placed in anything. Something like this too. So there is some delay, there's some reverb, but you can hear how like it's straight time. It's not a dub delay. It's something that can be put in so many different genres of music. are just, it's also you'll notice, you'll recognize these sounds by like their name. It's just nylon guitar. It's very straightforward in their use. And yeah, these sounds are necessary. If you don't include them, it's a problem. And like this is an important tip, because it's funny, because you would think that when you're starting sound preset design as a sound designer, that you would only make simple sounds and then you'd become more complex. But it's actually the opposite that happens. And even in Arturia, historically, like if you listen to our older factory banks and stuff, like the presets sound very crazy, like experimental. It's almost like there was a fear of simplicity, and that simplicity would be viewed in, negatively. But actually, the more like we've matured as a company, and the more that you mature as a sound designer, you understand that you need a balance, and you need a lot of these very accessible sounds that people can use. Just people can use easily. So that's an important point to remember. And then, so this is a completely different approach, expressive focused, so performance oriented, and this will be more prominent on higher end instruments, and also for composers for cinematic scoring, people who are designing sound effects for video games. So these patches are going to be very deep in their expression, and they're going to take much longer to design, because you're going to have to put a lot of thought into every single control. An example of this is, this will be more in like our polybrute. So this is not a VST. This is just the connect. It's like the window that controls the polybrute, but it's a hardware synthesizer. It's an analog polysynth, and it's a high end synth. It's like, it's something that is made to be used in a very deep way with all the modulations. So you'll have sounds that are very responsive to your touch, and that's why like we also have the Polybrute 12. This is the even higher one, and if you look at like the ads and stuff, it's like supposed to be showing you that you can get close to an acoustic instrument and how expressive and how responsive it is. So here's like an example of one sound, and when I'm pressing on the keys, it's going to affect the sound as well. So these kinds of sounds will be, if they're for composers, if they're like really deeply expressive, you're going to be making them on a synth that has a lot more complexity and like a lot more available connections, for modulations. So like the Polybrute has a matrix with 384 destinations, the Pigment synthesizer as well. You probably have heard of, Pigments. Trying to open it. So see, like this kind of synth, it's our most modern synth, and you're gonna have all of these modulation slots. You're gonna have the ability to make complex functions, unpredictable movements. Whereas like if you're just using the Juno, well, it's great, but it's gonna be more linear. You're not gonna be able to make as complex and unpredictable movements. And also modern timbres and textures. So then there's the genre-driven production style. So these are, I would say, are quite tough to make in the sense that you have to do your homework, you have to do your research, and if you're not familiar with a certain genre or subgenre in a brief for a project, you're gonna have to spend quite a while to listen to the references and become familiar with the codes of that genre. So, and like there's some genres where like the codes are very strict. Like, there's like the amapiano has like a log bass, or there's the acid bass line, and or like there's certain genres that really call for specific types of presets. So for example here, let me go back to Analog Lab. And so like for example EDM. Okay, sorry, not EDM, it's trance. Like an acid techno. So see, like this kind of sound is not bread and butter. It's like it's very typed. In French we say typé. Like it has a type. It has a very strong personality. Like this too. So good for like hip hop, soul, ambient, cinematic sounds. Like evolving pads. And an important thing about these sounds is that you're going to want a very accurate tagging system. And this is something like we want to continuously curate and work on, so that when you're searching in your browser for like types of sounds, like styles, like if you're looking for dub reggae, you want to only find sounds that are really relevant to producing a dub or reggae track. So that's an important thing to consider. Then we have like the more otherworldly experimental sounds. And this is more like pure imagination territory. And it's kind of like the opposite of the imitative referential sounds to imitate a violin or a pluck. It's where you want to evoke something. Sometimes you want to evoke an imaginary place and create like strong images in the person's mind. And the sound here like becomes the subject of the actual subject, and this is in the spotlight. And I like to think of it as like when you play this sound, when you start playing a few notes, it inspires some kind of landscape or some kind of really strong emotion. So did I put some in here? It could be something like a drone. So popular context would be for game sound design, or it's just cinematic. We release quite a lot of cinematic packs, and they're really fun. I have to admit, this is the most fun exploration type of sound design for presets. And then we also have, of course, functional and utility, and these are, interestingly, they actually require a lot of, quite a lot of knowledge, because you need to know exactly how to solve mix problems. So, fixing muddiness, enhancing certain frequency bands, compression, and these are very, very important. So we have like for example, the effects collection, and so the preset design, like the mentality and the approach to this kind of preset design is very different. You're gonna want to name your presets very clearly. It's gonna be quite straightforward, and no fluff. Just straight to the point. So there's like 3 important points that I boiled it down to for being a good sound designer for presets. Having musical sensitivity, so you don't need to be a musician. You don't need to have years of classical training or of playing an instrument, but being sensitive and being aware of the perfect balance that you need to have, so that the choices you make are just right. It's not too much. You know when to stop a certain range, so that it's not overbearing, so it's not too harsh, this kind of thing. To be sensitive, to have sensitive ear is important. And technical mastery of the synth you're using, and also just synthesis in general. And finally, focus on the target user. So having, I mentioned this later, like empathy, and being able to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's going to be using your sounds is super important. Some things that you go through. So mastering synthesis and the signal path logic, and understanding through modular synthesis is very, very helpful, even if you only end up working on, an in-the-box synth, something that's already completely hardwired. It's going to really help you understand the signal path. You don't need to buy a modular synth rack, or if you can't borrow one, you can download VCV rack, for instance, where you can use it all virtually. So that's a really good way. Or you can go to a synth shop and try their modular gear. Also, learning how to handle balance and coverage in a bank is something that comes with experience. It might not be obvious in the beginning, but you'll get better at it. Knowing just how many presets to make that are accessible and more simple versus a little bit more experimental and out there. And also, I think this is the case in almost any career path, especially the creative ones. But the imposter syndrome is very normal in the first few years, and it will get better with time. In my case, I had it for at least 3 years after I was hired. But then when I realized I was able to explain everything without thinking to, an intern or to someone, a new arrival or something like that, then you realize that you've earned your position in your space. So don't worry about that, because it will go away with time. There's also an important distinction, like not just all the different things I just talked about, like the different types of presets for different contexts, but also the context of musicians, live gigs versus studio use. It's kind of like, maybe for sound techs as well, it's a completely different universe, like live sound versus studio. And so when you're creating great sounds for performing musicians, you have to think of things like the PA system, huge sound system. You don't want a sound that's going to be messy, full of noise. It needs to be balanced, but also expressive enough. And you want to focus on playability as the number one priority. You want it to be easy to play and comfortable to play. It needs to cut through the mix of the other musicians, but not overbearing, like the macros, everything, it shouldn't be too subtle, because then it's like you can't hear it with all the noise, but not too wild either. You don't want any unexpected surprises. And yeah, punchy envelopes, like to give you an example, for Astrolab, which is our stage keyboard that I mentioned earlier, I've been working on the factory bank of these presets for 4 years now. And the biggest work we did was selecting all the sounds we wanted and then reworking them so that they would be more punchy, more playable, more effective, like better velocity response. Maybe like if the aftertouch was too crazy, reducing the aftertouch, stuff like that, so that it's just easy to play on stage. And like think of like, how is my preset going to be used if it's a solo lead? How is it going to serve these moments? Asking those questions to yourself. And then when you compare with designing presets for composers or for the studio, then you are thinking about how to inspire, and you want to evoke a mood, a place. It's kind of like what I just mentioned with the cinematic, otherworldly sounds. So it's more about evoking a vibe, and here there's more, I would say, I want to say there's more freedom, in like the design, because you don't have to, you're not thinking about like, oh, this modulation is going to go too crazy, So it could be something like, it can also be a bit more niche. Here, so we have a store with the sound banks here. I was gonna open this one, a few presets here. So yeah, like thinking like a composer, a listener, someone who wants to create some kind of world, and they should invite you to play and discover the sound. So it can be interesting samples. I always think of Spitfire Labs, like Spitfire that's now in Splice, and the Splice instrument, and the lab samples and the aesthetic choices they made are very, very interesting, like whale song and sirens and stuff, and it's very like imaginative. So stuff like that. So let's talk about more of the practical tips now. Turning it into a career after you've made your first sounds, you've explored sound design and synthesis, you feel like you are confident in your abilities. So how can you pitch yourself as a preset designer? Like one thing before I start talking about this is that for the majority of cases, it's more easy to be doing this as a freelancer, just because there's not many companies hiring full-time sound designers for presets. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's like worth acknowledging that like being a freelancer is probably the most common avenue here to follow. So yeah, learning like each, if there's like a company, a VST company you love, you want to get familiar with their tone, their aesthetic, and their target users, and then send them an introductory email and be specific about it. Like one of our best sound designers now, who's not in-house, he's a freelancer. He approached us with a very straightforward, clear email, like, hey, I can make a Detroit techno sound bank, and he sent us like half of the bank already finished. And it was very specific. It wasn't, hey, I'm a sound designer, I can do this, I can do whatever. It was very specific, and it was actually like that confidence and that ownership in what he's good at that that made us convinced to give it a shot. So saying like I'm a sample provider specializing in this, or I'm a preset designer specializing in this, is actually going to work in your favor. And then building like a small portfolio. It doesn't need to be. It's better to not have 500 links. It's better to have one link of like a SoundCloud playlist is a great thing to use. You don't need to have a fancy website, even though it's nice to have a website, but like we often get website links that are broken. So just a SoundCloud playlist is great. And the ideal thing to send though is, if you want to pitch your work to Baby Audio, you make a bank with for their synth. I forgot the name of their main synth. You make a bank with presets for that VST, and you send it. So when people send us a finished bank of pigments, it's much clearer and easier for us to assess the work than if they are sending us like a reel of sound design they did for a perfume ad, So really like focusing what you send to the context of the company or the client. And treat it like an artistic collaboration in your tone. It's much better. It's much more appreciated. And always, I mean, this goes without saying for almost everything, but it really does help to be positive, easy to work with, and clear. Also responding promptly, being consistent. Because then, since a lot of companies work with so many externals, you want to give the best impression. So being consistent, being reliable, and easy to work with. These are common paths to get there, as in to get your first project, your first paid project as a preset designer. So the first one is the one that I did, that I followed, is an audio degree. So sound technician or engineer. I know there's more and more sound design diplomas, degrees out there. Even in universities, you can get like a bachelor in sound design. I've seen this, at least in Europe. And then an internship through your school. Because, for example, at Arturia, you can't get an internship with us unless you're enrolled in some kind of program. It can be SAE Institute. It can be, anything that can sign the internship contract. This is like a really solid way to get your foot in the door. You can also start work adjacent to sound design in the company or in the place that you want to be in. So a lot of people, even like in our team, we've had like at least a couple of guys who were QA technicians, or they were working in beta test, or a support technician became a product manager in the company. So like if there's no clear opening in sound design or for presets, you can start another thing to become a sound expert, and then move to that role when there is an opening. You can also become an educator, and through your own means, like content creation. Like there's this one sound designer we work with. Well, there's Laura. She has her own. She has a very good, really good following on Instagram, and just showing her sound design, and it's like a direct portfolio, so that works really well. You can also build a community around your passion in other ways, like Twitch. You can sell sample packs, or have a Patreon, and become an expert on certain synths on YouTube. So we also are working with this one sound designer who has a YouTube channel where he goes in depth on new synths and their features. So this is a way also to like get your name out there, and then to build credibility. And so I included this link here. So like when you download, I believe you can download the slides. And I'm not sure if they'll be included or if I can add them into Zoom. But if you can't, well, I can maybe provide the link after. So I made this cheat sheet for essential skills for preset design here. so I can read through it quickly. We still have 15 minutes, so we're good. So there's like long-term habits, staying curious and sonically aware of genres, of like the current music culture, and contemporary sound design. If you have not heard of this, Gordon Reed Synth Secrets, it's available on Sound magazine, like a blog website. It's an article, like a full series of articles from, I believe, like 1996 or something, but it's like the most comprehensive, incredible resource for learning sound synthesis that I've ever come across. So I highly recommend it. Let me go back. Yeah, no, it's really great, and plus he has a sense of humor, so it's not boring. So I really recommend. Like I printed it out. It's like this big. I kept it in my desk at work, and I give it to all the interns that come. He has a sense of humor. So study sound synthesis in depth. Learn the instrument inside out. When you're working on a new VST, a new hardware, all those, the limitations. Work with those limitations. Become creative with them. And also the genre conventions, modern trends, that kind of goes into the first point. Before you start any project, like we always send a brief, and you want to absorb the brief, artistic and technical guidelines. You want to, like, before starting anything, listen to the references, get into the mood, understand the target user, and design with intention. So each preset, don't like make duplicate, like lazy patches. Like make sure every single one has a clear intention. And then during design, just like being careful with all the, prioritize mix compatibility, gain staging. These things are usually included in the guidelines, and they can be quite long when the guidelines, but it's just important to pay really close attention to detail. And this career really requires that of people, is to be very conscientious of details. Avoid over designing. If it sounds good, just leave it as it is. Stay organized, and find your system, because everyone gonna have their own system. Find your own system to be consistent, to make sure everything is following the guidelines pretty much. And then a really good tip after you're done is, for example, if you're making a deep house pack, you want to test your presets in the context of a production. Make sure it works. So put your deep house baseline in Ableton with, you don't even need to produce them. You just go on Splice and put some loops, make a deep house track of 32 measures or whatever, and see if it works. See if it sits in the mix. And then you want to just iterate and refine, and make sure that the identity is strong, is consistent. So, to finish, some key takeaways. Preset design is both a creative craft, and a career path that blends art, empathy. I put empathy because it's empathy for the user, and engineering. So it's like a really beautiful combination of the artistic and technical worlds, pretty much. And great presets start with a clear role, and they're designed to serve the music maker or the user's workflow. And finally, your sound signature can inspire countless musicians and music lovers. And I wanted to make a point on this. You see, like, it depends on the company, but for example, Arturia, we really care about crediting the sound designers, and just like an artist would be credited for their track. All of our names are here in all the designer names are in the presets, in the metadata. And we've had sound designers tell us, they're like, oh, well, thank you for crediting our work, because thanks to you, other companies have sought me out because they saw that I made sounds on for whatever synth, or they heard my work, and then it's like a direct like kind of business card for other people to contact you. So whenever you can, make sure you're credited as well for your work, and you will gently make a name for yourself. It's a small little world with amazing people. It's a really beautiful community because we all do this because we have a passion for sound. So it's a small tight knit community, and really great to be a part of. So yeah, to close, we've got 10 minutes, like 9 minutes. Feel free to keep in touch. This is my email, and this is a link with my music. And Chelsea, I was wondering, like, is there a way to share documents?
Yeah, down at the bottom in Zoom, you might have to hit more. But there's a docs section,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and I think you can upload through
Okay.
that.
Let me.
Docx dot txt.
Oh, only docs. Like, I can't put PDFs.
I would try. I don't see why that wouldn't be. It's not listed under supported, but I don't know why PDF wouldn't be. You could try
No,
it.
they don't. They don't let you put PDFs.
Weird.
What
You,
about the slides themselves?
it did say supported file XLSX. Is that Excel? Yeah.
Oh, only Excel.
.csv.
I have. Hold on. Hold on. I
Did you say
think.
there was a
Okay.
link as well?
I
Yeah.
do have a link for
You
this.
put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I have a link to download. You guys can try this? Oh no, that's not it. That didn't work. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. Great.
Normally, you should have a little banner up here, and you should be able to click download. Does Arturia work with US contractors? Yes, absolutely. Do you still create presets day to day? I have less time to make presets in my day to day, that's for sure. Like, I had way more time as an intern to just delve into sound. But I always make a point, especially when it's a project I really care about, that I always make it a point to say, I'm going to make 20 presets. I'm going to make 30 presets. And it's an engagement, a promise I make so that I still stay connected to this work. Because if I'm not, if I stop making presets completely, then I'm going to start to feel like I'm losing credibility and I'm losing connection to my team. So I do make a point to do it, but I'd say, and I don't do any more quality control for presets. But my team does, and it's actually a topic that we are exploring right now with automation tools and AI, where we want to reduce the time that you could say, wasting. There are a lot of robotic tasks for QC. Some stuff needs to have our ears, but other stuff is like very robotic tasks. So we're working on reducing time on that so that we have more time on what's important. So like listening and creating sounds. But no, like, yeah, we work with a lot of US contractors. There's no limit to what country or wherever you're from. You just need to have a company or a freelance ID to make an invoice. So that's the only criteria, is that you need a freelancer like official status, for taxes, and that's it. Yeah. So freelancers are paid more. Freelancers are paid. So we have guidelines that we send that have the rates per type of instrument or effect. So like there'll be like a more of a base rate for fee collection, simple synthesizers, like 25 euros. That's like, I guess, 35 US dollars per preset. And then polybrute presets are the highest paid because they have a morph A and B. So it's like two presets in one, plus all the modulation slots. It can easily take 3 hours for one patch in total. So we pay those 40 euros. And yeah, our prices also are like fluctuating, like they increased with the inflation and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's the price grid is the same for any freelancer. We also have like hourly work when we're hiring people who do things like reworking a library to fine tune, to improve, or like people who validate samples for sample based instruments. So that would be more on an hourly basis, and it will depend on the person. It'll depend on their expertise and like how much of an expert you need to be for the work.
Do you have in-house people who are creating presets for new products?
Yeah. So our team of 6 in-house sound designers. So we're 6, including me. We are like not only creating presets, we are also like sort of like involved on the entire project itself, like on product creation. So like we're only 6. We have like 45 instruments in V collection, 40 instruments in FX collection, and hardware. So we're all kind of like on 2 or 3 projects simultaneously, and we're involved in like working with the DSP, the digital signal processing team, for listening sessions. We help to write the specifications. We help to do all the internal audio content. So it's not just the making the presets at the end is just one part, but we're like following the project with the whole team, with the software development and everyone from the beginning. So it's like completely like a continuous project development. And I'd say that in total, like in approximately, we must make probably like 20% in-house in some projects. If it's like a small effect, like I just made an effect, I worked on an effect where 100% of them were made in-house because it was only 25 presets that were needed. But we release like really big pigments banks, and those are like 150 presets each. So we only make like maybe 30, 40 in-house for those.
When you're releasing a new product, do you search for preset makers before releasing the product, or like how much of it is before the release and after?
Oh, like I mean, we have to write the sound design plan and then the brief, and we create our little team of in-house plus externals many months before the release. We usually like it's usually like the sound design period's like a month, and we have like a halfway mark, a feedback point of 50% in between that month, like after 2 weeks, to make sure everyone's on the right track, and that's a really crucial part of the project. But yeah, we usually have to get everything done at least like a month before release, because then we have to make marketing assets, audio demos and stuff for the website. So yeah, there's like a timeline that we follow.
Any other last questions from anyone? Feel free to use your mic if that's easier.
As a follow-up to what you were just saying there, once an instrument does release on average, how much additional sound design work for just like continuing support of new packs happens after the fact?
Well, if it's for an instrument, then like for example, Analog Lab, I'm working on it continuously. We're constantly improving and curating the bank, and it'll go through like milestones of updates, maybe like one update per year. But now we're working in a much more like flexible sort of sprint sort of a working environment where we're doing like iterations of the software, every 2 weeks. And it really depends. Sometimes we don't touch something for a few years. It depends also on how much is it selling. If it's a high stake, product, because, like pigments, we're updating it every year, and it's a free update for people who own it. And people really, really appreciate that it's free for people who own it already. And every year we release a new factory bank and expansions. So yeah, we have like priorities based on the sales of what we make.
Lily, would you mind putting your email in the chat? Are you okay if people reach out?
Yeah, of course. So it's on this. I mean, if you can see my slide as well here,
Yeah.
it's just my name. It's lily.jordy@arturia.com. And then if you want to find my music, my music projects, here's the link as well.
Great. Just give people a minute to copy those. Yes, thanks so much, Lily, for this presentation.
I hope it was interesting. Hope it was helpful. Yeah. Thank you, Chelsea, as well.
Well, I hope everybody has a great rest of the conference. Like I said at the beginning, all of the sessions are recorded, so if you missed anything, you can go back and watch again later.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.